Welcome back to another Feels session. We have these beautiful and very special Feels sessions that are part of the Feels podcast, and they are called the Stack Series. And the Stack Series is a series in which we uncover new authors, celebrate books, and today I have a really amazing privilege to chat to a new author. I'm so excited for her series of books, and we're going to chat about the first one today. And I want to welcome you first and foremost to the space, Jeanna Joyce, to the Feels podcast, to the Stack series, and say a big congratulations on your book.
Thank you so much.
Such a pleasure, and it's wonderful to have you here. So I want to chat a little bit more about your journey in writing this. And I've thoroughly enjoyed reading. I love fantasy. I know that you mentioned to me that this is a bit more of a memoir transmuted into fantasy, so I'm very curious about that. But maybe you just want to take us on a little bit of a journey of how you got to writing the book, where did the idea come from, and yeah.
So the idea for this book came about in like a perfect storm of ways, right? So I am a reading teacher, so I gift books to people for like Christmas and stuff like that. So my family is really large, and that's like the funnest thing. And like from September to December, I'm just buying books, and it's so much fun. And my youngest brother is like a prolific reader. And so finding books for him is always the challenge. And so 2 years in a row, I thought I had found him the like best book ever. And I wrapped it and I gave it to him, and he opened it up, and he had already not only read the book, but the entire series that the book belonged to. And so I had that like in the back of my head. And then I've been wanting to write fantasy for a long time. When I was in high school, my grandma and I like wrote a fantasy book together. And when she passed away, it would kind of just got thrown into a box, and it's all messed up. And it's like 10 different versions that are all mixed up together. And then it was given to me, and it was like, here, you're the only person who can fix this because you helped write it. And so that box has actually been traveling with me for like 19 years. I think that's how long it's been. And I've never done anything with that book. And so I wanted to work on it, but that seemed really overwhelming. And so I thought, I'll just read some fantasy and then I'll think about that book. So I started to like read fantasy. And I got really discouraged because it felt like after like 15 books in, I had just read the same book like over and over and over again, just with different characters, but it kind of just felt the same. And so I had this book that I had previously written. I had my brother. I had this like want for more from fantasy. And then you just top that off with a lot of family drama, and it was like the perfect writing. Here's like a platter of all the ingredients you need. And so I sat down and I started to write, and I wrote for like ferociously. I mean, I would stay up all night. I was writing every chance I got, and on Christmas Eve, I printed the first manuscript, and it was 235 pages at that point. And I thought, oh, this is such a cute little book. And I wrapped it up and gave it to my brother for Christmas. Like, here's a book you've never read. And then I'm a teacher, so I had like 2 weeks after that where I kind of was just, it's winter, it's gross outside, I wasn't doing anything. So I thought, oh, I'm gonna add to that book. And so by the end of Christmas break, I had added another like 200 pages to the book I had already written, and I had almost completed a second book. And so the writing went really fast because, like I said, there's a lot of family drama and trauma. So what I did is I took everything that was going on in my life and I put it into this book. I wrapped my family members and the drama and all of that into like this pretty fantasy world. And it had helped me like work through a lot of that. And so then the second book came along, and it was kind of the same thing. My husband's a recovering alcoholic, so that second book was kind of like our journey into that. So it's a lot darker and deeper than the first one. And it just kind of like snowballed from there. And because I was writing about myself and my family and the things I'd lived through, it like just poured out of me, like a book that had been waiting just for me to say, okay, I'm going to write it. So that's how it came to be in the world.
Wow, that's really, well, first of all, a funny, like you said, mix of things to come together and inspire. It always fascinates me what inspires us and what are the kind of the circumstances that get us to being creative. And often it is like a mix of things, but it also very much a yearning from inside to release a lot of things. Like you said, it's expressing for you how you felt. And do you feel like lighter now that you've done that?
I do. It was probably a whole lot cheaper than therapy could be. And I got to work through like some of the darkest moments, but I also got to relive some of the best moments as well. Like I didn't just let the drama and the trauma lead. While I was uncovering that and unpacking that, those good moments kind of snuck in as well. And we're like, but wait, don't forget about us. We had some good times here.
Oh, I love that. I love that you also go on a journey. And I think any author, I mean, writing a book is a journey by itself, going through the whole process of writing and then editing. But the internal journey is so worth the while, I feel. And when I was reading kind of like your genre, saying that it is dark fantasy, weaving tales of shadows, starlight, and fated bonds. I love that. I feel like it's really inspiring to read through. I'd love for you to tell us a little bit more about the protagonist in the story.
So in the first book, we meet Adeline, and actually in the beginning we meet Lunaria. So the first 2 pages you meet Lunaria. She's a child. She's rushing. The one thing about the book is I wrote it in order. Like the way it's written is the way it came out of me. And so the prologue is actually my mom and my biological dad split when we were 6 years old, when I was 6. And my mom kind of just like took us girls and left. And we had my cake mix because it was my birthday, and we had 2 Cabbage Patch dolls, and that's all we had. And we just ran. So that is what the prologue is that moment of my life. Because that did start what the rest of the book is about. Because my mom, when she took us girls, she remarried and had my brothers, so 3 brothers. And when she did that, we came together as a family. And so like it was before internets and stuff like that. So we kind of just changed our names to our stepdad's name. And I started calling him Dad, and we kind of like, there was this new identity that was formed for me. I was only 6 at the time, and I still saw my biological dad. So there was this split in my life where I was really 2 different people. And so that's how the book, why she's split. So when we meet Lunaria in the prologue, but then we don't see her the rest of the book. And then, so Adeline is our main female character. She's 30 years old. Everyone around her is married, has their bond, has magic. She doesn't have magic. She can't ride dragons. Her family can, but her mom and her sister are different. They are part of the Illyrian race, which is the race that has no magic. And so because of that, they can't bond with dragons. Their bonds with like another fae is like not really there. Her sister does find like someone to fall in love with, and they have this cute little life and everything. But she's 30 and she's basically her mom's companion. And which was, I did not get married till after I was 30. So that was really my role in the family. I may have been the oldest child, but I was treated like the youngest in a lot of ways because I didn't have like that partner and stuff like that in my life to make me. So that's kind of how Adeline came to be. And I kind of worked through that weird family dynamic in the book. And really, she just longs to ride dragons. She wants that same bond that she sees the people around her having. It's not that she wants magic. She doesn't want power. She just wants the freedom of being able to fly. And then our main male character enters as well. And really, as the story goes, which one is the protagonist really kind of gets muddy, because in book 1 she's more the protagonist. In book 2 it's more about his story. So it's kind of like together they work this story out. He comes into her life at 30, and he's the most feared like warrior in the entire realm. She doesn't see that in him. She doesn't see that from him at all. And when I sat down and was writing, and because I'm a reading teacher and an English teacher, I realized I wasn't following like the plot structure that people expect in a book. I was writing from my heart, and I was writing the events as they came to my brain. Like, oh, this is what it felt like when this happened, and how do I put that into the story? And for the first book especially, almost every decision was, if I was in this situation, what would I do? If my husband was in this situation, what do I think he would do? So that's kind of like how it rolled out in the whole process. And I really do think that I captured myself at that time, when I was 30, when I was still like in this weird family dynamic. My husband came into my life when I was 30, and it changed that dynamic. I was no longer like, it changed everything. And that also is a real moment. My husband was my biological dad's next door neighbor when I was growing up. So when I would go to California every summer, he was my best friend. We hung out, we swam in his pool. He was my first boyfriend. He was the first boy I kissed. And that, was in 1990s. And in 1996, my dad and I had like this falling out, and I never went back out there. And so no internet, long distance phone calls were expensive. So we kind of lost track of each other. I always kept in contact with his stepmom and stuff like that when I was 30, and kind of just down and feeling like sad in my life. I reached out, or I looked on Facebook, and I found him. And he was going through his divorce. And 2 months later, he gave up everything in California, moved to Iowa. And we've been together for 16 years in our life again. And so that's why she was 30, because that is when my life changed, and he came back into it. And we were both broken in different ways. And so this book, it really shows like the way we healed each other, the way we healed ourselves. And because it's really one story that was so long, it has to be 6 books. And so because I didn't follow like that traditional plot structure, what I did make sure that I did is somewhat follow the hero's journey. So the first book is really just that introduction to her ordinary life, and then her first call to action. And that's all you get. Like, you're like, that's it. That's the book. And then we move into the second book where she starts to face her trials. So.
Wow. You can't maybe see this, but I actually I'm crying a little because I think that this is such a relatable, and I want to use the word story, but it's not a story, it's your life, And so the fact that you could weave that into fantasy and first, kind of heal through that. And I'm so happy that you guys could reconnect again. I think I'm such a romantic at heart. So it's just beautiful. What I believe is that books and film and media are ways of expressing, but also for the reader or the audience to know they're not alone in their own journey. And so when people are reading that, we allow ourselves to believe magic. We allow ourselves to believe in what's possible in the world of fantasy, in books and things like that. So first I want to say thank you for writing your story and for sharing that with the world, because that is a brave thing to do. And and I can imagine it came with its own challenges of facing.
Oh, it did. It came with its own tears and laughter and all of that.
Well, that's beautiful. And so, whereabouts in the publication process are we now? So when people look online, what are they seeing and what are they expecting next?
So at this point, the first book has been released. It's on Amazon, and it is available hardcover, paperback, also ebook on Amazon. So first book is out. Second book is in some editing. It got really long. There was a lot of feelings in the second book, and it ended up being 713 pages.
Wow.
I want to make it more the size of the first book, which was about 530. And so it is in some tough editing at the moment, because when you're writing about your own life, it's really hard to cut. Like, even one word changes the whole feeling of the moment. And so it's hard to choose which words really can go and which ones really need to stay. So that's where we're at. Book 3 and book 4 are they're in somewhat polished drafts. They are very close to what I want for their last iteration. Book 2 is also book 3 is also a little long and might need to be shortened a little bit. And then book 4 is actually one of my ones that I came out of me just almost perfect. And so I'm like, I think this one is great. Now, I thought that one about the second book as well. So we'll see by the time I get to like the deep editing purposes of 4 if I have to cut or add to it. Book 5 is all in my head. It's there. I know exactly how I want it to come out. But with me being in the editing process, it's hard to write that far ahead when I'm like stuck in book 2's edits. So I haven't put that one on paper yet. And then the 6th book is another one that it lives in my head completely, but it is going to be a very large war, which is something I have never experienced being part of. So that one is, I know the emotions that go into it. I know the moments of my life that go into it. And where I'm at with that one is, how do I wrap that into like this fantasy war that's going to take place? And then weirdly, there is a book that isn't even in the series that has already been written, because when I got done with book 4, the way I have it, I realized that, well, actually, I realized partway through book 3, but at the end of book 4, one of my side characters pushed his way to the front of the book, and he decided he also wanted to be a main character. And so he decided that in book 3 and book 4, he is very much a main character. And in order to like honor him as a main character, I had to like decide where he was coming from. And so I stopped everything to write his book. And I thought it would be like a novella. I thought, I'll just write a novella about him and how how did he push his way to the front, right? And that novella is now like 500 pages. So it's not going to be a novella, but he will get his own book, but it has to come out after book 3 because it has some spoilers for the other stuff. Yeah.
Wow, you are so busy. Like, you are just writing away. I mean, how do you find time for everything? And like, what is your like writing procedure?
Okay, so I write way differently than most people write. I'm the oldest of 5 kids, so I grew up telling stories. I'm also like a Gen Xer, so like I grew up watching my siblings a lot, and so like in order to like entertain, I told stories, and really like elaborate stories. And I grew up writing. Like, my grandma was really, really big on like reading and writing. And like I said, her and I wrote together. But telling stories comes very naturally to me. So what I do is I I set up my computer, turn on a Word document, and I set it like wherever my house needs to be cleaned. It's the weird thing. So if I'm in my kitchen, I put it on my kitchen island and I hit the dictate button. And as I am doing something else, I tell the story the way I want it to happen. I've recorded myself a couple of times doing it because I was making like a TikTok video or something like that. And so not only am I like cleaning the house, but because I'm very expressive with my hands, I'm building a universe. I look like one of those weird people that have like that computer in front of them where they can move things around, but there's actually nothing there. And so like I'll be like thinking about like the setup of the room is in my head and I'm putting people like where they belong. And so when I write, it comes out that way as well. So when you read a chapter, you know who's standing where, what they're holding, who they're by. You can imagine everything like you walked into that room. And so, and that came from me like doing that while I was telling the story, because it wasn't something I was writing. It was, I was telling it to someone. And that's how each chapter was born. And then I do the dialogue and all of that. And then after that, I go in, I clean it up. I add the punctuation where it should be. I add words that I feel should go in there, clean up the dialogue, because that's usually pretty messy when I dictate it. But that's how it actually comes out. And it comes out so fast because I can talk much faster than I can type. And so I can get pages written while cleaning my house. And that is my writing process. And so the cleanup part happens like at night when like I'm just sitting on my couch and we have something going on the TV that we're not really watching, we're just listening to anyway. And then I start editing and moving things around or doing that. So
wow. So like a multitasking writer.
right. Yeah.
That's amazing. Actually, you're giving me so much inspiration because, you know, in my own writings, I often feel like it's when you don't always have the dedicated time, then you don't write. But if you can do it while you're busy doing life and get through it. I mean, a lot of authors, I think, will, you know, wanting to be authors are probably going to listen and feel very inspired by the fact that you can create the time for it, even if you feel like you don't have that time. And I think we all actually want to tell stories. You know, I think that's so wonderful that you exercise that muscle when you were younger, not knowing probably you're going to end up writing this series. And so I have to ask, I'm curious about the book that you were writing with your grandmother and if you've looked at that again.
I've pulled it out of the closet a couple times during this for a couple of different reasons. My writing is going to be different than most people are used to. The words I use, the language, and it's one of those things that like when I was in college and stuff like that, I would turn in papers and people would be like, you just write differently. Like, and no one ever could put like that finger on it, but my professors were always like, it's just different. And so I always was like, it pushed me to like keep writing the way I write, but I could never figure out what it was. And when I was just finishing up like my college for teaching degree, my professor that I had that was working with me like one-on-one was from Canada. And she asked me, she was like, are you Canadian? And I'm like, no, I'm not. But my grandma was. And she was like, you write like a Canadian. She's like, Americans don't write this way. And so I was like, oh, that's what's different. Because like, you know, spell check is always like flagging my writing and stuff like that. And and I'm like, no, I like it this way. We're going to keep it that way. And so I have pulled that book out a few times while writing, more to center myself, because that is the way I was taught to write. The words, the sentence structure, the words. My grandma was also like a huge Harlequin romance reader. And so like she's been reading, like she had like shelves of Barbara Cartland. And so I've also gone out and like revamped my Barbara Cartland library because I've been reading her books since I was in the 3rd grade. And so I pulled in all this stuff that really reminded me of my grandma. And so when I would write a scene and it would feel off, it was usually because my language slipped out of that register I was used to using and into something that people would be more expecting from a fantasy novel. And so that book has come out a couple times, and every time I still just get frustrated because it's such a mess. Like I was looking, there is one scene that I know, and it's actually the scene that started the whole book when we were writing it. And I looked and I'm like, where is this? And I still can't find it. I know it's in there somewhere, but I really wanted it because of the description in it. I really wanted to like land into like how descriptive my grandma was, and I like how she taught me to be that way. Other scenes are good, but there was one I was really
There's the one, yeah.
It was the one I was really looking for. So
that's such a special thing. I think, being able to create together as souls who like are in different ages, but coming together in the life. And obviously she's not here, but I know she's probably feeling all of this energy that you're putting out there into the world, So I really hope you can also get to creating beautiful mess from that book in the future. And I want to also ask you if you have any kind of words of wisdom for authors out there, people who are writing their books or wanting to, what your process has been. Maybe you've captured some kind of gem for yourself that you can share.
So to anyone who is like starting the process, the only thing I can do is like use like how I did it. So once I started the actual process of writing, and it may not work for everyone, it might just be like my way, but my way might be what's like the door that people are looking for. I stopped reading other people's writing, except for writing that is my own, because I want to stay true to my voice when I write. And it's very easy. I mean, that's why we read, right? We read so we can learn how to write. We can learn how to communicate and also get those stories, but we learn so much about writing from reading. And so I've been very careful to stay away from anything that could influence my writing except for my own work. And that's the first thing I did. The other thing I did when I started writing is I just wrote. Like my world, like my free time, my brain entered that world. I have entered that world completely. I lived there most of the time. And I had to, in order to build a world that had magic and its own food and its own, I mean, I don't even have humans in the book. So everything about the world is made up. So I had to figure out like that world, and I had to live in it in order to feel that. And some people may not be that immersive, but in my brain, I was there most of the time. And then the other thing is a lot of what does stop people is I don't have time for reading. If you have access to, or I don't have time for writing. If you have access to a microphone, you have time to write, because even just a stream of consciousness, the story could be lost in that. I will put on my notes app in my car and set my phone like off to the side in the passenger seat. And I will dictate for a whole 20-minute drive or an hour drive. I just tell stories constantly. The more you can record your stories, whether it is sitting down and typing them or like dictating them, the story is in there somewhere and you'll find it. And and when I was writing, I wrote. Like my world was about the world I lived in. It was about writing. I would do the things I'm supposed to do in real life, and then it's back to writing. It really did like consume me until it really was like those first 4 books had to come out. Like once I started, there was like this avalanche of, and because I was writing what I know, what I felt, what I experienced, that's how it came out. Once the story started, it was just going to keep coming until I got to a point where I was like, okay, now what we're actually at is, where do I go from now? I've hit the point in my life where it's like, what is the next step? And that's why the book is like, we're at peace right now. So like that avalanche will come from you. Because of that, I didn't get on social media while I was writing. I didn't like do a lot of research into what it means to publish. I was just focusing on writing. I just wanted my story out of me. The other piece of advice I would give to people is to actually, while you are writing, stay as far away from social media as you can. The reason for that is there is a lot of negativity in writer spaces online. And that it can destroy your momentum in a heartbeat, because then you start thinking about the way you're writing your story as it's coming out, and you start overthinking that story. Let your story come out. When you're in that revision stage, if you want to go and check out those, like the social media side of it, do that. But know that it can be a very damaging place when you're trying to get that story out. And so like I go through bouts of it, right? Like I'll create something really cool, or like this weekend I was doing a book event, so I was on a lot of social media, but then it's like once you're there and you're posting a lot, you're seeing all that negativity as well. So then I was like, okay, I've done 2 days of this. I'm done. I'm going to go back to my editing and writing world and step away from it. And that, I think, is probably the biggest piece of advice, because there's been a lot of times in the writing journey in the last year where I've really internalized what I've been seeing on social media, and it stopped me. And like, I had to think about like what I was writing, like, do I need to change my style of writing? Do I need to, to fit this box that people want it to fit in? And I'm like, I can't. I can't.
That's amazing, like advice. Thank you for all those pointers. And I want to kind of echo the last one as well. I feel like I use social media now in a very like strategic way, but I'm not a scroller. So I find if you get into there, then it really can affect you. Yeah, someone once said to me, I said I wanted to write a story, and they were like, well, just write it for you first, and whoever will resonate with it will resonate with it, and it's great, So I love that you've done that, and it's really inspiring to hear how you've kind of just stepped into that universe. I think it's really a beautiful thing to do, and allow yourself to play in there. And imagination is reality to me, and being able to exist in that, is wonderful. So,
right.
But thank you so much for sharing all of that. And I want to share just a really quick little blurb, if I may, from your book. And you wrote there that you kind of write to survive, you write to connect. Above all, you write to whisper to every wandering soul, you are not alone. And I feel like that's such a message from the field space as well. We always end off saying, we're in this crazy journey of life together. And we're just really happy if people are reading more and enjoying that space. So thank you so much for sharing that, your fields with the world.
Yeah. That is why we write, and that is why we read, right? We read to not feel alone, or to escape into a world that is different. It gives us a break. And that's what I wanted. I wanted people to be able to resonate with the feelings of the book. It may not be for everyone, but there is going to be that person out there who needed it, an oldest daughter, someone who's like lived through the partner side of addiction. Those are the people that are going to feel a lot when they read it.
Well, whoever's picking this up, please go check out the book, the series, the author, Jeanna. Thank you so much for sharing that.
Thank you.
And just, I hope you keep writing. I feel like I don't have to say it. It's just going to be pouring out of you anyway.
I feel like this world can't end.
Amazing. And for those who are listening, happy reading. I hope you are happy and happily reading out there. And please let us know on the socials what is happening in your world. And we're really happy for you all to be feeling wondrous things. And keep adding those books to the stack.